What's going on, guys? Dev26 here, and welcome back to another video here on the channel. And today for you guys, we have the Totenreich Round 100 boss fight guide. This is going to include all things from weapon builds and augments to high round strategies to actually breaking down the boss fight, and also comparing the standard versus the cursed version of that boss fight. Now, if you do enjoy, it goes without saying, please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new and want to see more content like this. And if you want to see previous breakdowns of other Round 100 boss fights like Astra Malorum and Ashes of the Damned, be sure to let me know in the comments section below, and I currently have the Paradox Junction one still on the channel. Anyway, let's get right into it. So throughout the entirety of this video, it is all time-stamped if you want to skip to certain parts of the video. But starting off with the weapon builds here, we are running the VST SMG with the certain attachments and builds code that you can see on your screen now. Another great option is the VOYAK Assault Rifle, again with the build code and attachments on your screen now. These guns are built for hipfire accuracy, because essentially in the boss fight we're going to want to be running around without stopping and aiming, so the zombies can't catch up to us, because obviously they're going to be super sprinters. So these builds are really good to sort of moving around with the specific stamina up augment that I'll show you later in the video to deal damage as mobile as possible. There is also an ion sniper rifle, which is quite good. That is also on screen now that you can use, but this weapon requires you to stand still and essentially aim, which is also more dangerous, but it however does the most damage, so it is also another great alternative. I've also put on screen now the weapon builds for the SG-12 and 1911 pistol, which are very good for horde control in the high rounds, especially as the zombie's health increases. But also all these weapon builds will be in the description below, and ranked with their weapon builds and ranked in the order in which I think they are best used. Now, on screen now, I have all the list of augments for the actual high round strategy that I recommend you use. Just copy them as you see them on the screen. Pause if you need to. The main important ones, however, are the Juggernog ones. Following them as I do, as there were recent changes to the perk and their augments. Also, Mule Kick, I recommend running multi-pack so you can upgrade your weapons faster, and then obviously switch to the high round augments. And then Stamina Up, Hot Foot, and also the one to be able to shoot while sprinting is very important. But follow them as I do, and also the PhD augments are also very important for the Gnome strategy if you want to do that. Because in this video I'm going to show you guys two strategies, one which is really easy but may get patched, and a second one which is just as good and just as fast, but it requires a little bit more skill and a little bit more focus while playing, but that one definitely won't get patched. But anyway, follow these augments as you can see right now, and then we can jump into the gameplay. So these are the relics you're going to want to run in your Curse game. Obviously, you've got the Teddy Bear Relic, the Focusing Stone Relic, the Spider Fang Relic, and the Machoiska Doll Relic. They shouldn't affect your gameplay too much, other than the Machoiska Doll, meaning you can upgrade your weapons later in the match. But you can obviously bypass this if you get your weapons gold rarity at a later round. Then your final relic can either be the Vril Sphere to carry only 4 perks, which means you'll have to do more TED tasks to get all your eternal perks. So that's a way to bypass that. Or you can run the Bus Relic, which means the boss is actually going to regenerate health in the boss fight, which is a little annoying. It means the boss fight's going to take longer, and it's also going to mean you're not going to be able to point farm your zombies on lower rounds, as when they regenerate health, they're not going to be able to, they're going to stop giving you points. So these are the pros and cons. I recommend the Vril Sphere rather than the Bus Relic, but you can do whichever you guys prefer. So starting with the early rounds, obviously jump in, do the Easter egg as normal up until you sort of shoot the bonfires and you're ready to go into the boss fight. I'm not going to show you guys how to do that, as I'm sure you guys know what to do and you're pretty aware jumping into this video. You want to focus on how to get to round 100 and actually how to beat the boss on round 100. But after you set up the boss fight, you want to get your weapons pretty much as high level pack-a-punch as possible. Tier 4 if you're in Cursed, and obviously Tier 3 if you're in Standard. And what I recommend you do is you upgrade your Jotun style wonder weapon first, and you sit on these boxes near the church, as you can see now, and you just keep on swinging. As you can see, you can pretty much stay in this strategy up until about round 40, I'd say. So you can just sit here to farm points both in Standard and in Curse, or you might want to use a low damage weapon just to farm points in Curse as well. You can also do it that way. But essentially, yeah, stay on this box. It just keeps swinging your wonder weapon, and you might get hit a couple times, but the zombie shouldn't do too much damage where you're at risk at here as well. The special enemy shouldn't be too much of an issue. In 2 or 3 swings, he should go down, and yeah, pretty much just maintain this strategy until about round 40 or so, and then you can switch into the actual high round strategy. So the first high round strategy is actually the Gnome Strategy. And essentially what this strategy involves is it involves you doing the Gnome Easter egg, which if you don't know how to do, you can search it up online. It's not that hard. You have to shoot 4 gnomes with Shadow Rift. And then once you do that, you can actually go to a gnome helmet in the antique store, and you can crouch and become a gnome essentially. And then you essentially just jumping down off this wall in front of you, and using the PhD augments, it kills all the zombies. And you essentially, to go into this gnome, you crouch. So you press your crouch button, you become the gnome, and you press crouch again to sort of go out of that gnome state. It does have a limited time duration, so when that runs out, you can go and get a new gnome helmet. You can do this by running to the church, which is the Vulture Aid room across, as you can see me doing in the gameplay. It costs 6,000 points to get the helmet back, but once you do, you can go back to the spot, sort of run around a few zombies and train them. I like to use the SG-12 to activate fireworks and get a few more points back, and also kill a few zombies, and then just go back to the strategy of jumping up and down off the wall, and essentially rinse and repeat this all the way to round 100. It's not very difficult, as the zombies can't do any damage to you. The hardest part is essentially moving, once you exit the gnome state, is getting to the back to the helmet and then back to the spot. That's the hardest part of the strategy, which honestly isn't even that hard. When you do exit the gnome and the time runs out, the zombies can hit you immediately though, so you really want to be prepared when that happens. I find if you keep a tally of the points in the middle of your screen, when it reaches about 6,000 points, 5 to 6,000, you know the gnome's about to run out, and that's when I have the, I'm pretty sure I'm ready for it to happen. And that's why when I go into the gnome state, I'm using my Mustang and Sallies with the brain rot augments to distract the zombies, and I just spam the Mustang and Sally shots, which kill a bunch of zombies, and it gives me space to sort of exit and go to the church and get the gnome helmet. If you do save and quit after you do the gnome Easter egg, the helmet's actually going to spawn in the antique store where you first pick it up. So you can get it directly from there after you exit the gnome state, which avoids you running around all the zombies. But if you didn't do that like I did in my game, you can easily just run to the church and run back. Like I said, the helmets do cost 6,000 points, but doing this strategy, you should end up making points, at least a little bit more, which should allow you to have some points for ammo in the boss fight, which shouldn't be too much of a deal. Now, this strategy is very overpowered. It's quite unfair, so there is a high chance that they are going to patch this strategy in some time. It may be this week, it may be in a few weeks, so use it to the best of your abilities while you still can. But if they do end up patching it, that's why I put in a second strategy for you guys to use, which you can also do in that event. So the next strategy that's always going to work no matter what, they're not going to patch this, so if the gnome strategy does get patched, you can use this, is a trap strategy. And essentially what you want to do is, at the start of the round, you want to run around and do a few loops as you saw me do, and then run and activate this trap. And this will activate the fire trap, which means all the zombies that will run to it will die if you're standing in the spot that I am now, because there's no way really for them to get through. When the necropincers come after you, they will get stunned, and that's when you can use your VSTs or SG-12, put dead wire on it, and it'll pretty much destroy these boss zombies. And then you essentially just sit here while all the zombies run at you, and it's pretty much easy. You can't really go down. It's more when the trap turns off when it gets a little bit more difficult. As the trap turns off, you'll see it starts to shake and it starts to make a high-pitched sound. When that happens, you pretty much want to run, maybe do a few loops if you need to, and you're going to run to the second trap. So this strat is going to involve running to and from 2 separate traps. And basically at the second trap, as you can see now, I like to hoard up a few zombies, not too many, activate the trap, but when you're standing at this trap, the zombies can still get to you. So when the zombies get to you, just run back to the trap, and when it gets a little bit too chaotic, just run back to the original trap by the lighthouse, because you don't really need to stay at this trap for too long. Just long enough so the trap by the lighthouse can recharge, which is the better trap, and can last for longer. So just do that and go back and forth between these traps. I like to, when I'm running to the trap, the secondary trap, not the one by the lighthouse, I like to do sort of like a snake train as I'm leading up to it. That just helps. So I have a full horde of zombies when I get there that sort of die, and it gives, like I said, the trap at the lighthouse a longer time to recharge. But essentially, you want to be careful though when leaving the lighthouse trap and moving over to the other one, because a lot of zombies can come from this this wooden hut in front of us, and it is very easy to get trapped. So if you do ever get trapped, throw a Casimir, spam your Mustang and Sally. It shouldn't be too hard. Like I said, this strat works both on Cursed and Standard, and that's for both the Gnome strategy and this strategy. So no matter which version you're playing and which version you try to do, either will work no matter what. So the strategy obviously isn't that bad. It requires a little bit more skill in terms of maneuvering around the zombies, but it ultimately isn't too difficult and one of the best strategies to get to high rounds on this map. I'm also now going to leave a full round of gameplay just so you guys can see the strategy in practice, but you can skip over this part if you really want to. It's just so you guys can get an understanding of the strategy itself.
Careful with these. Very much doubt we have a dentist on staff.
Okay, so once you reach round 100, save and quit your match, and now we're going to put on the boss fight augments. So follow my augments as you can see on screen. This is the same for both in standard and curse, but follow these augments as you can see on screen, and then we're going to get right into the boss fight gameplay. Okay, so once you load in on round 100, finish the round out so you go to round 101. This is so you can save and quit. If you go into the boss fight and you use all 3 equivalent exchanges, you can pretty much switch to Dying Wish and save and quit, and switch to Dying Wish and then get another attempt at it. So that's why you want to have the ability to save and quit and go in on round 101. But once you're in the boss fight, we're going to break the stages of the boss fight down between the first phase, second phase, and third phase of the boss fight. It's not a difficult boss fight. I'd say this is probably the easiest round 100 boss fight of them all, and that's because there actually isn't too much of a difference. One that I can't even think of one between the standard version of the boss fight and the round 100 version of the boss fight. I believe the only difference is zombies spawn in the final phase of the round 100 boss fight when you're locked in and it's just you and the big boss and you're trying to do damage with it to him and he's throwing rocks at you. I think that's the only difference. But let's get right into it with the first phase of the boss fight. This is when him and the robot are fighting. Now, this stage, icicles will appear across the map. Use your Jotun Star Wonder Weapon just to break a few icicles so you can clear your path around, so you can keep doing a loop around the boss arena without getting trapped in. And then essentially you want to wait for the sound cue for when the crit spot is appearing, and just you want to put as much damage into this crit spot as possible using your weapon of your choice that you chose from the list below, and do as much damage as possible. I find it's easier to shoot and sprint at the same time. This is where those super sprinter zombies can't actually catch up to you in time, and this way you can do as much damage as possible. In saying that though, if you do find yourself overrun, I would just use the 1911s and just spam them and get rid of all the zombies that you have in a horde. I personally wouldn't recommend killing in this phase or really any phase of the boss fight, as you don't really need to, and you can avoid the zombies quite easily by jumping up on ledges, wall jumping. But if you do need to kill zombies to stay alive, obviously do that. You should be able to one phase the crit spots if you're more accurate than I am. At the end of each crit phase, that's the red sort of spot, the robot is going to kill all the zombies. It's either going to send a missile barrage and kill all the zombies in the arena, or it's going to send a Die Glock and kill all the zombies in the arena. So you shouldn't have too much issue there in terms of killing zombies. But yeah, essentially just focus these red crit spots, and this phase of the boss fight isn't different to the original version of it at all, and honestly isn't even that hard to do. Now, moving on to the second phase of the boss fight. Essentially, these are when those little mini living floating icicles appear. One strategy you can do is you can actually throw frag grenades. So I recommend you go with frag grenades into this boss fight and throw them into the mouths of the icicles as they're about to attack you. This will cause them to drop down, and then I recommend you actually spam your 1911s into them to do a lot of damage. And what you want to do is you want to keep a distance from them, because once they fall to the ground, if you don't break them, they're actually going to shoot up and take out all of your armor, which on standard is absolutely vital to living. So just do as much damage from the 1911s at a distance where you can't take a lot of damage, and then I would run back and forth between the icicles. And if you do run out of frag grenades though, or you miss, like I did, quite a lot actually, I recommend bringing in a war machine. That way you can actually use the war machine to knock down these floating icicles and continue doing damage to them. Once you continue doing damage to them, the big boss is going to come back in. He's going to kill all the zombies with his ice storm. That's why when he does his ice storm, you want to sort of line the zombies in there, and he can shoot them, and they're all going to die. Or you can just kill them regularly if you really want to. And you want to focus on doing as much damage to the boss as possible. He's going to send rocks at you. So what's going to happen is there's many ways, sort of rock patterns he's gonna do to you. There's the low flat rocks, which I'm sure you're aware. You just need to lay down, and this is very easy to shoot at him at the same time. There's sort of a zigzag one, which is sort of like mountains, I like to call them. You just need to move under the open triangles and sort of move left and right. You can avoid them quite easily, but it can be sometimes hard to shoot the boss at the same time doing this one. Then there's the H rock attack. I've done this boss fight many times now, and I still have no idea how to avoid these ones completely. other than just running completely far away. So if you don't want to lose your armor and you want to avoid this attack, I would recommend just as soon as he does it, pull out your lantern so you can run across the arena and just run to the other end of the map and just continue shooting. This is the only way I've found to dodge the H attacks. And then there's the one that's sort of like, it's like a missile lock attack. So you'll shoot rocks in the air and they'll sort of close in on you. And that's how they can actually hit you if you're sitting behind cover. What that happens is, I find if you step forward, right when they go to hit you, you can dodge them quite easily, but you may take a little bit of damage. There's also one final rock attack, which is sort of like an S or a lightning bolt, which is fairly easy to dodge. You just pretty much just have to move out the way. It's not that hard to dodge this one. Keep doing damage to him. You should get the health bar quite down. I haven't seen anyone one phase him with a gun. Generally, you're going to have to go to a second phase and destroy those floating icicles again. But you can do that. Those floating icicles are going to drop ammo and armor. You can pick them up and you can use them to stay alive. And then the boss is going to come back in and it's going to continue doing damage to it. Now, something that happened in my game is the boss actually froze all parts of the arena. And I actually didn't know what to do. So what I did was I tried to survive, which was very risky, but I found what you actually need to do is activate the fire trap, and that way you'll stop taking damage from the frost, and you can just focus on the boss as well. That's pretty much the only way to avoid this. It's also why I recommend you having the charge Jotun star at all times, and trying to avoid using this on the floating icicles, because if you run out of that charge, you're going to want to save it for the boss, so you can run over through those frost areas without being slowed down and taking a lot of damage. But if you do enough damage here, you move on to the third and final stage of this boss fight, which may be the hardest. This is where I recommend you use everything you have left. If you haven't used your Casimirs yet, I would throw them down to keep the zombies off you and just pretty much focus on the head of this boss. He's going to throw rocks at you, so you got to use the advice I gave you in the previous stage to avoid them. And just pretty much keep focusing on the boss. If you run out of Casimirs, that's when you use your Ether Shrouds. And if you're using the extension augment, like I definitely recommend, and the extra charge augment, between the 2 Casimirs you use and the 2 Ether Shrouds, you should be able to do all the damage you need to, if you're avoiding the rocks, of course, in that amount of time. But if you don't, this is where I also recommend you use Idolize if you must, and then maybe a max ammo or raindrops for Casimirs if you really want to. He dies fairly quickly in this stage, though. You actually don't have to get his health all the way down. You can just get him down a little bit, and the robot will finish him off. And yeah, that's pretty much the entirety of the boss fight. It is a fairly easy boss fight, like I said, compared to the other ones. There's not much difference between this one and the round 100 version. But if you did beat the boss, congratulations, you have unlocked the calling card on the Dark Ops. But now let's move into the standard versus cursed versions of this boss fight and what the differences are between them. So the difference between the standard and the cursed versions of this boss fight are actually very little. That's why I didn't separate the breakdown of the bosses into 2 separate chapters like I did with the Paradox Junction boss fight. With the standard boss fight, however, let's go over some of the pros and cons. Armor can definitely be an issue. That's why shields up is definitely recommended, especially in the second phase of the boss, when the boss is throwing a lot of rocks at you, which can shred your armor. Other than that, it is the exact same as Curse, minus the health cap increase of the actual zombies, meaning the weapons are weaker against them. Armor and ammo drop out of the floating icicles in standard, which helps to maintain your armor levels. And essentially, other than that, there is no other difference between this version of the boss fight and the Curse version of the boss fight. Now, the Curse version of the boss fight, on the other hand, plates is not an issue. With gold armor, you can just regenerate your armor as much as possible without any issues. The biggest issue is definitely getting to round 100, as it is harder to reach in Curse than it is in Standard due to the increased health cap of the zombies. And like I said, other than that, it's the exact same as Standard, minus the harder difficulty in killing zombies within the boss. And one more thing on top of that is no plates or ammo drop out of the icicles that you break, those floating icicles. Actually, no, I'm pretty sure ammo still drops out of the floating icicles, just no plates will drop out of those icicles. So you're pretty much relying on golden armor to regenerate armor. unlike in Standard where you're only relying on those plates. So that is it, guys. I hope you did enjoy. That is my full breakdown of the round 100 Totenreich boss fight, from augment setups to weapon builds to high round strategies to actually breaking down the boss fight and then differentiating it between standard and cursed mode. In saying that, if you want to see my full gameplays beating both these versions of the boss fight on round 100, they are live on my channel, linked in the top right of your screen now. Be sure to go over and have a look if you want to see exactly how I beat them and how you can beat them in your game as well. Now, in terms of which version is best for you, it really depends on how good you are at the game. If you're good at avoiding getting hit and sort of maneuvering around the zombies, then I think definitely Standard is the version for you, because I think it's a lot easier. However, if you find you're someone who maybe makes some mistakes and loses your armor quite often, then maybe Curse is the best way for you, since golden armor allows you to take more damage and regenerate more armor, which allows for a little bit more room for error. But obviously it comes with its own cons that I have listed in just a little bit earlier. But other than that, guys, I hope you did enjoy. There was less to break down than the Paradox Junction boss fight, which is unfortunate. I was expecting something a little bit better with this round 100 boss fight. I hope they can step it up in the next map. But anyway, good luck trying to get this calling card, and I hope this breakdown gave you everything you needed to beat it. In saying that, like I said, if you would like to see breakdowns of the previous round 100 boss fights on Astra Malorum or Ashes of the Damned, let me know in the comment section below. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.